Hello, everybody. My name is Damian Crawford, and I am doing interviews for the Shorter Games with Worse Graphics bundle. And I am here with,
Yeah, I'm Adrian Barnello. How's it going?
great. Um, so, you worked on Trash Planet, that's part of the bundle, yes?
Yep, that was me.
Great. So, exactly how long have you been making games?
Well, I've been making games off and on since about 2010. I started when I was in college, my first year of college, and I've been working on games off and on ever since then. So about 2010.
Okay, so yeah, a pretty significant amount of time. How exactly did you get into making games?
So I have just naturally a horrible, awful sleep schedule. I sleep about 5 hours at night, and then I'll take like a 2 hour nap, and then I'll sleep 5 more hours at night. It's bad. So I when I was in college, it was also like this, even worse than it is now actually. And I was stuck in a dorm room with this bad sleep schedule, and I was like, well, I need a hobby that I can do super late at night because nobody's awake. I can't talk to anybody. Nobody wants to talk to me. I can't play guitar because I'm getting write-ups from the RAs. So I need something to do. So I downloaded Game Maker in 2010,
Hmm.
back when it was a lot less good than it
Yeah,
is now.
real
It
classic
was
Game Maker Studio.
yeah, it was like Microsoft Paint basically back
Hmm.
then, but now you can make like really, really legitimate, amazing stuff in there. But back then it was really, really simple, and I started making games in that because I needed something to do really late at night, and that's why I make them.
Hmm. Good reason as any. Um, so I guess that kind of feeds into why do you make games? Is it, at this point, is it more of a, well, you enjoy doing it, or is it still just something to do late at night?
Well, I make games for the ability to write stories and make characters.
Hmm.
I like to write stories and do world building and make characters and stuff, but I am not a great prose writer. I couldn't write a book, for
Hmm.
example. Um, it would not be a good book. It would get horrible reviews for sure. Uh, and I like to make music too. I'm a musician, and you can kind of combine all those things that you like to do into game design, especially if you're a solo dev like me. Um, yeah, so that's why I make the games because it kind of combines a little bit of everything, a little bit of obviously game design, story writing, character design, and music.
Hmm. Cool. So for you, this is more of a hobby than a job.
Yeah, that is 100% accurate for
Mhm.
sure. I went to law school.
Right.
I have a law degree. I passed the bar exam in Missouri, and I'm waiting on some other. There's so much crap that you have to do to be a lawyer. I mean, it makes sense, right?
Hmm.
Like, it could be life or death if it's criminal law.
Right.
But yeah, I'm doing all that for my professional stuff, and I've also worked on I don't want to be all political or anything, but I've worked on political campaigns as well. That's something that I do professionally. But making game stuff, it's definitely a hobby. I wish it could be a job,
Hmm.
but as we all know, it's sometimes it can be really hard to make ends meet and stuff with game design.
Hmm. Definitely. I've talked to a few people who have wanted to transition from going from hobbyist to full time, and yeah, there really is just so much that goes into it. Um, so actually, let's talk about Trash Planet a bit. So it was really just you on the team. Um, Anyone else involved at all, or?
Well, so it was mostly just me.
Mhm.
I did collaborate with some artists. I don't really want to say why because it's big
Oh
spoilers
yeah,
for
yeah,
the
that's
end,
fair.
but there is some commissioned art in the game that I commissioned. I paid for it, and I also used some songs. A couple of the songs, like the song that you hear in the first city, it's called the Metro. The song that you hear on the Overworld, the one that plays when you fight the robot, and then a couple other town themes. I'd say about 5 songs. I use them with permission from a St. Louis-based. St. Louis is where I'm from.
Hmm.
St. Louis-based electronic artist. They go by Death BB, DETHBB. I used some of those songs with permission. I went to college with this person, and we were pretty decent friends. And they always wanted their music to be used in a video game, and I was like, "Hey, I got your back. I can do
Right.
that." And it has that Trash Planet feel to it as well. So other than some commissioned art and about 5 or 6 of the songs on the soundtrack, I made everything else. I did all the programming, if you want to call it that, in RPG Maker,
Hmm.
and or designing, whatever you want to call it. And I did pretty much all the graphics other than the commissioned art, which is obvious that I didn't do it at the end.
Gotcha. Yeah, as an RPG Maker developer, I always say, "Oh yeah, I code to an extent." Like I've shown people the bizarre eventing I've had to do with projects, and they're like, "Please learn code. Like, please stop
Yeah.
doing this to yourself."
Oh my God. So to kind of riff off of that,
Oh
there's
yeah.
a mechanic in Trash Planet called so there's like a bonding, sort of like the I thought it was funny because as soon as I put out Trash Planet, there was this meme that went around on game design Twitter that was like, "Oh, is that a Persona 5 reference?"
Yep.
And I was like, "Oh God," because Trash Planet has a bonding mechanic in it, of course, right?
If you have a bonding mechanic, it's instantly Persona.
Right. And
Especially
I
after
love,
Persona 5 released, because then
yeah.
if you have like a fancy UI, everybody's like, "Oh, like Persona 5." Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I like Persona 5 and I like the Persona games, but it's like not every game that has a bonding mechanic is Persona. But
Hmm.
the bonding mechanic, especially with RPG Maker, talking about the crazy eventing that I had to do, there is a
Yes.
way to check there's a way in Trash Planet to check your levels of how many times you talk to people.
Hmm.
And the way I did it was I called the burn book, like in Mean Girls, the movie.
Hmm.
Have you ever seen that movie?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
familiar.
Yeah, it's great. So she's got the book that she keeps. She talks shit on people basically in the book,
Hmm.
and so the main character Tilda has that in Trash Planet, and it calls up an event, and then you select person's name, and then it comes up with like looks like a journal basically that has like writing on it and says like how far along you are in your friendship with the character.
Hmm.
But in order to get that to work, because RPG Maker does not have that at all,
Hmm.
I had to do like a common event that checked a bunch of variables that like displayed a picture if it was certain variables, and it was just a nightmare. And at each point in the game I had to redo it over and over again, but I had to do it. I was like, I need to do this.
Yeah, that's yeah, some people don't have any idea just how awful that sort of thing is to do in RPG Maker. Like my last game I released, not to talk about myself too much here, but I
Oh, it's all
made
good.
a roguelike in RPG Maker where you get a random party of 6 characters out of 420 different characters.
Yeah.
Um, Now, for it to do that, I have to check variables, and then I have to make sure that none of those variables are the same as each other, and then go down the list of if X is 1, put this character in. If it's 2, put the yeah.
I could
It's
only imagine.
and then decide on the map and how that works and where the events are and what events those are, and it's brutal. So
The
yeah.
way I describe it using RPG Maker is it's like you're trying to make a Victorian like mosaic from the Renaissance
Hmm.
with Legos.
Yes, that is
And
absolutely.
you have this beautiful image in your mind of what you want it to look like, and then you try and make it and you're like, oh my God, I can't, this does not work like this.
Yeah, it's like the people that do programming and stuff in Minecraft, where it's just all these nonsensical things, and it's like I could never do that, but I can certainly relate to it.
Yeah, and it's the good thing about RPG Maker and the reason why I use it
Hmm.
is because you don't need to necessarily know a programming language. There's a lot of like scripts that you can use that are like written in that programming language that people just let you use, or maybe you have to pay a little bit. Like I paid a little bit for some of the
Hmm.
scripts that I used in Trash Planet, so
Right.
like the zooming script and all that, because I knew I was gonna sell it or have a tip jar, so I paid for some of the
Hmm.
scripts. But there's a good community. There's that Yanfly
Yes,
developer that makes
Yamfly
a
is
bunch of the
huge.
scripts. Yeah, it's a
Did you
big deal.
use VX Ace or MV?
I used VX Ace.
Hmm.
For whatever reason, I really don't like MV.
Yeah, I understand that.
I don't really know.
It's there's some things it does better, and then there's some things it does worse. And now there's MZ, which I've looked at, and also especially because Yamfly has retired officially now. I'm
Yeah,
like, I can't hang with that. I can't guarantee that I'm going to be able to get what I want out of this.
right. I don't know. It's like the NV for some reason it just feels like blocky when you're making it. It's like I don't know. It's
Well,
rigid, and that just might be because I have so many hours in VX.
yeah, especially because they went from 32 by 32 tile sets to 48 by 48, which it's like nothing converts cleanly. Like, there's
Yeah,
no way to make that work in a nice way.
yeah, no, for sure.
But yeah. Okay, well, I already covered that question about what engine you used.
Yeah,
Yeah, we covered that one hard. So,
yeah.
why did you make this game? What was the thing that made you go, oh yeah, I'll do this with this mechanic and we'll call it Trash Planet?
Yeah. So this Trash Planet was actually based off of a TTRPG. I do TTRPGs with my friends through, now we do them through Zoom or whatever, but we used to do them in person. And I've been doing the TTRPGs with my buddies since about 2010 when I started doing game design stuff. Again, it was something I picked up when I was in college. And I ran a TTRPG called Trash Planet with my buddies. And it was sort of the idea was like, we're going to make this I'm going to make this into a game. And we're basically like collaboratively writing the script right now. So I did Trash Planet, and the idea came from just like the dystopian future stuff and the sort of pollution based stuff that I was sort of thinking about in 2017. That's when I ran the TTRPG. It was sort of inspired by a lot of political stuff, but I tried not to make it like super political because I didn't want people to get turned off by it.
Right.
And I've actually had nobody talk about the politics in the game at all. Nobody has talked to me about it on Twitter. In fact, it's obviously a little bit inspired by like climate change legislation and Green New Deal stuff, but I have followers on my Twitter that are like MAGA followers, and I don't think they care or know about it, like the politics in the game. I think it's kind of hidden because it's a dystopia, and there's so many dystopia things,
Right.
and they're all inherently political. But I guess people kind of just see past it as much as they want to. And so basically, I made this TTRPG where the gimmick was that there was no ins and there was no like healing in between sessions, and there was no sort of easy way to heal yourself. That was the gimmick of the TTRPG. And it was based off of that part in Chrono Trigger when you're in the future and you go into the healing pod and it says you're still hungry. And I was like, oh, that's
HP
awesome.
and MP are restored, but the roar of your stomach's still there. Like,
yeah, you're still starving. And it's like, I wanted to make a game that was like that, that had that kind of vibe to it. And I wanted to make a TTRPG that was like that in kind of incentivize the people playing it to like scavenge and to like look for items. And I used a lot of like random item generators and stuff to come up with the items that they found in the trash and stuff. And yeah, so I wanted to make a game that was like a little bit political, but not super political. And I wanted to make one that was different and it wasn't in a fantasy setting. Like I wanted to make an RPG Maker game that wasn't in a fantasy setting.
Which is tough.
It's hard because if you want to, you have to make all your own graphics because the graphics that come with RPG Maker are only for fantasy games, pretty much. That might be different now, but at least when I started making it, it was like that.
It's still pretty heavily skewed, but
yeah.
Cool. So, well, actually, we covered that too. Why that particular aesthetic? It's pretty well explained there.
I will say that I will add that the reason why I did that aesthetic that I went with, that's why it's in the Shorter Games of Worst graphics bundle, is because it was budgetary. Because I wanted to have somebody do the sprites for the game and not me, because I'm not an artist. Just look at the game. I'm not an artist. I don't do that. I went to law school and I went to school for politics. Like I don't do art. But I don't have money to pay someone to do all the art. And I knew that I would be working at like 4 a.m. and I would be like, oh, I need a squid guy that they kill in the game. And I knew I would just need to draw it all myself because I wanted to get it a certain way, and I wanted it to look a certain way, and I wanted to be able to redo things over and over again if I wanted to. And I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to afford to pay somebody like a fair amount to actually do all this work. Because the game is like, it's like 10 or 15 hours long. So there's no way that I could possibly pay somebody to do that. So that's kind of why I feel like that's kind of why it's in the shorter games with lower budgets and worse graphics, is because I ain't got no money to pay people to do art for
Right,
the whole
and
game.
yeah, that's definitely, a big thing about the indie scene is just, I mean, I've seen jokes where people are like, the indie scene is just the same people handing the same $20 bill around to each other, um,
Yeah.
which not entirely far off. But yeah, how long did it take you to make this?
Well, I started the TTRPG in 2017. Yeah, it was 2017 that I started the TTRPG writing it. And I started writing it in 2017 because of like the political landscape. I mean, it hasn't changed like hardly at
Mhm.
all. But I started writing it then because of that reason. And I finished the game in September 2020, and I released the first version of it in September 2020, and then I changed some stuff and I released a second patch or version or whatever. There's no
Right, right.
patching in RPG Maker, but I told people that they could re-download it or whatever if
Yeah,
they
it's a
wanted to
new
get the newest
version.
version. Yeah, the newest version it's done. I'm not gonna work on it anymore unless somebody's like, "Hey, there's a game breaking bug 2 hours into the game."
Hmm.
Then I'll go fix that, obviously. But I don't think that there's anything like that. I don't think there's any people turning into tables or things coming out of people's pants or whatever there is in the. Can I say Cyberpunk 2077? Can I say that?
I mean, I'm not gonna say you can't.
Censor it? Yeah, there's nothing like that. I don't think.
Hmm.
I don't think.
The worst bug that I had in RPG Maker was I forgot to set the passage setting for the mountains on the world map to not be able to be gone through,
Yeah.
which it's a 2-click fix, but I uploaded like a beta for my very first game, and someone came over and played it.
Yeah.
Um, and
I
they
need
were
to turn
like,
off my vent real
oh, yeah,
quick.
yeah,
Hold on 1 second.
sure.
All right. Sorry about that.
No problem. Um, and they were like, yeah, so I got to this part and I ended up dying. And I was like, okay, how'd you get there? And they're like, well, I just went and walked up here. I'm like, oh my gosh, you missed 2 dungeons, you missed 2 new characters, you missed like 3 weapons. Like,
Yeah.
oh,
You
it
missed
was,
everything pretty
yeah,
much.
it was so awful. I was like, that's about as bad of a bug as we could have possibly hit.
I think that
And
there's
it's
something
also
like
so
that.
easy.
Yeah. I think there's something like that in the first Dragon Warrior game, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
There's like on the world map and like the very first one on the NES,
Yeah.
might have been called Dragon Quest or something back. No, it was Dragon Warrior back then.
It was Dragon Quest in Japan. It was Dragon Warrior here up until like the 5th one or whatever.
Yeah, or something like that.
But
You're totally right.
everybody knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. But there was a bug in that game where if you walked on a certain part in the world map in like the very beginning, you would fight like level 10 like
Hmm.
anteaters or whatever that would like f your ass up for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. That game is especially strange, but
Yeah,
yeah, it was still. I mean, it did do so much work for the rest of the genre, and especially once Dragon Warrior 3 hit, and that's responsible for like half the RPG tropes that exist. Um, so would you say that you learned anything from making this game, whether it's about like RPG Maker or design process or like some moral at the end of all of this for you personally?
yeah. I actually learned a lot making the game. So the first thing is that this is the first game that I made. Well, the first one that I actually was confident enough to release that
Hmm.
I actually made all the sprites in. And all the graphics pretty much were made by me. That was a big learning curve for sure.
Hmm.
When I first started making the game, I didn't think that I was gonna be able to do that, and I was, which is good. Um, I also hadn't used, I hadn't really like used music in the same way. I would say, like, I made music for the other games that I made, but I didn't make like a soundtrack, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Hmm.
The other ones had like they had songs in them or whatever, but the Trash Planet soundtrack, which is on Bandcamp, and you can download it for free,
Hmm.
it is a soundtrack. Like you can listen to it from beginning to end, and it kind of has a cadence to it. It has a flow that I think it took a lot of work, but I feel like if for some reason somebody was like, "Hey, do you want to make a soundtrack for my game or my indie movie or something?" I could be like, "Yeah, I can do that."
Hmm.
Whereas before I would have been like, "No, I can't do that. I can play guitar, but I can't do that."
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a bit tougher when instead of just like one song or two, you're having to nail like aesthetic cohesion for an entire
Yeah,
game.
Yeah, and like the Liet motifs and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you say that you are happy with the game? Like, all said and done, you're glad about what the game has ended up becoming?
Yeah, I think so. I'm happy with the amount of traction or whatever it's gotten so far. I mean, it's all about like measuring your expectations, right? So
Right.
like, you're not gonna, in general, like there's X thousand numbers of indie developers out there, and they're releasing X number of thousands of games, and then there's like one Among Us
Hmm.
uh, in that pool, and there's like one Undertale in that pool, and there's like one Doki Doki Literature Club in that pool, where it's like that's the one that's going to be huge that year, basically.
Hmm.
Uh, and you know, it's not that one, and I don't think it ever will be because it's too weird. I mean, all those other ones are, except for Among Us, the other ones are a little weird too.
Hmm.
But I just don't think it's got that kind of power to it or anything. But I think that as long as you are happy with the way that the release has gone yourself, I don't think, I don't think it's right to expect to get like thousands of downloads or anything like that. Although it would be nice.
Right.
But I'm pretty happy with the way it's gone so far, and the traction that it's got off of the bundle release has been really good too.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Great.
for
I'm
sure.
glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Um, so how would you just so I don't have your page up right now. I've closed my Firefox because I wanted to make sure I was getting a good bit rate. Um,
Yeah. Makes sense.
so I know that you said you worked on other games, but this one is one you've actually felt confident enough to release. Do
Mm.
you have any other games on your itch.io?
Okay, so on my itch.io, I have a game called Super Maria RPG, which
Mm-hmm.
is a obvious reference to another game. That one is okay. It's fine. It's not great. I mean, it's basically like Trash Planet, but not as good. Like it's got a lot of the same, not a lot of the same themes, but it's got like the similar engine and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The Trash Planet engine is basically that engine on steroids, where I took everything about it and I just made everything better in the
Mm-hmm.
game. And I also use custom, like I said, custom sprites. And a big issue with the Super Maria one was, and the one that I'll talk about here in a second, was that they had a lot of like, I used tile sets and then I would draw some of the sprites and then I would, it was a lot of different clashy kind of art
Mm-hmm.
styles going on at the same time.
Yeah, having to
Whereas
figure out like what one good palette would be for everything.
yeah, I actually, and this is really weird. I actually got a response, but I actually emailed that game page for Super Maria to Toby Fox. Believe it or not, Toby Fox actually responded, and I said, "What do you think I should do with my next game to make it better?" And he said, "Make it match." He
Mm-hmm.
said, "It doesn't." He said in the email, I don't have the email saved, but
Right, right.
I swear to God that he did respond. He said, "It doesn't matter if it looks good; it just has to all fit
Yeah,
together."
that's the
And
big
I was,
thing is aesthetic cohesion.
yeah, and I said, "Okay, so that's what I'm going to do with Trash Planet." I think I did that with Trash Planet. It's definitely aesthetically cohesive,
Mm-hmm.
except for the part at the end, which is intentionally not that.
Right, right.
It's
But
intentionally
I mean,
not.
you could also say that for a particular boss in Undertale. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but
I remember the one.
yeah.
But yeah, and then the game that I made before that I was confident enough to release was I made a game in 2016 called Hellbound, which is my most popular one, and it's like it's ultra edge. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the most edgy thing ever. It's about like Satanists and they're like killing angels and shit.
Right.
Uh,
So
I kind of think
Bayonetta.
it, yeah, I kind of think it's a little bit embarrassing, not gonna lie, but it's like it's there, it's on the internet, it's got like multiple thousands of downloads, and like some people still really like it. And yeah, but I would just tell everybody to just play Trash Planet because it's like those other ones but better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you downloaded Hellbound for some reason, just download Trash Planet because it's a million times better. I would say.
Mm-hmm. So would you say there's a general theme to the games that you make? Or is it more of a whatever seems interesting at the time?
Yeah, so I try to capture like my influences. I try to capture like 80s and 90s gritty, like pre-moe anime. Like I'm
Okay.
talking like Dirty Pair,
Yeah.
and like Blue Seed. Have you ever seen that shit?
I haven't seen that one.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I love that like gritty, like VHS anime look.
Yeah. Like
The
classic
original,
Cowboy Bebop and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, the original Alita Battle Angel like
Yes.
OVA. Oh my god, so beautiful. Like
Hmm.
the actual OVA, not the movie. Um, and the so I try and combine that with like I'm really inspired by like 80s movies, like Escape from New York, Basket Case. I don't know if
Hmm.
you've ever seen that. Um, like grindhouse movies,
Yeah.
and I also kind of smush those things together, which aren't game related, obviously. And then I also kind of like inspired by Flash games and games
Hmm.
that are on the internet, like Undertale, Lisa,
Hmm.
which is RPG Maker, and Space Funeral is
Hmm.
a big one. So that's kind of the vibe I go through for, is just like mixing all those together.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
Um, so do you have a favorite game that you've made? Because it sounds like Trash Planet fits that bill pretty hard.
Yeah, I would say that if I had to like if I had to like admit to my family and friends that I made a game,
Right.
it would be Trash Planet probably. If I had to like show to I work at a law firm temporarily. If I had to show my boss, the lawyer at the law firm, a game that I made, if he was like, "Oh, I Googled you and it says you make video games. Show me one
Right.
of those," I would be like, "Here's this one. Don't fire me, please."
Hmm.
There's nothing too fireable in there or anything except for some curse words.
Right.
But yeah, that's definitely my favorite one they've made by a lot. By a lot. So.
Hmm. Cool. Um, so let's say that you had an infinite amount of time, resources, people that would help you out, whatever, to make a specific game. What game would you make with that?
Yeah. So if I had the resource that I would want infinitely is
Hmm.
money,
Well, yeah,
not
yeah.
just for paying bills and stuff, but if I had infinite money to make a game, I would pay somebody to make the art for the game, and I would also pay a bunch of programmers and stuff to make the game that I
Hmm.
have like up here that is like my dream game.
Yeah.
And it would have that kind of art style where it would be like, you know how Cuphead was like that 1920s, there's a name for it but I don't
Yeah.
remember.
I know what you're meaning.
Yeah,
People are
they
familiar
took
enough with Cuphead's animation style.
they took that animation style and they made it into a game.
Hmm.
I would do that with like the 80s 90s anime style and like make it into a game somehow.
Hmm.
2D, they're moving around in 2D and all that stuff. um, and I would make that game like a gritty 90s anime that is also a game somehow.
Hmm.
um, but yeah, I don't have the money, so it's not gonna
Well,
happen.
yeah, yeah.
But
Um,
that would be the game I would make, and it'd be really surreal and it'd be really trippy, and it would have a lot of mind f's in it for
gotcha.
sure.
It's more a Aeon Flux sort of thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, okay, so you've been making games for a bit now. What is it that you like about making them?
Yeah, so I like the ability to always have something to do when you're making a
Hmm.
game. You're never gonna, for the most part, as long as you have the motivation and you have like the wherewithal to actually keep going, you're never gonna run out of stuff to do. Pretty much, even when it's done, like I could keep working on Trash Planet until I'm like 50 years old, probably, if I really wanted to.
Hmm.
But there's always like music to make. There's art stuff, especially if you're like me, where you're doing all on your own. There's like eventing. There's like writing. So I like that about making games. I like that there's just a wide variety of things that you can do.
Hmm.
So if you're like, I do not want to draw anymore, do not want to do that, I can make music instead, which is something that I'm better at. So I kind of like do the drawing and then I'll do some writing and then I'll do some music to sort of keep it fresh. So that's what I like the most about making games. It's different because like if you're making music and that's all you're doing, like you're in a band,
Hmm.
if you don't want to write music, then what are you doing? You can't really work on music if you don't want to write music. But with game stuff, if you don't want to write music or you don't want to draw, there's always something else you can do. So I like that about it.
Yeah. As somebody else who's also done a lot of solo development work, yeah, that is a very nice perk of it is the fact that, oh, well, I've been doing pixel art for like a week straight and I can't do this anymore. Then it's like, okay, well, let me get back to work on the storyline. Let me check out some plot holes that I need to patch up or do some bug testing or whatever else. Um, that is a nice thing about it. Is there anything that you say you don't enjoy about making games?
Yeah, so this is kind of a cynical take, I guess, but I'm letting it out
Oh
there.
yeah,
Um, I don't like people who play video games that much.
I understand completely.
Uh, like I'd say about 20% of them are cool, maybe 15.
Hmm.
Um, and I just feel like there's a weird disconnect where somebody will like leave a comment on your solo game that you made and they'll be like, the graphics suck. Next. And it's like, okay, dude, I spent umpteen hours working on this thing by myself. I just feel like there's this disconnect where like people see a project and they don't realize that's just made by one person.
Hmm.
If you drop like a comment on the Cyberpunk 2077 Steam page and you're like, this game sucks, like who cares? They're never going to see that. Like it's no skin off their back. They've got, I don't even know what the number is. It's probably like 1 million negative reviews at this point, or positive. There
Hmm.
are other games that are like more popular, like Last of Us 2 or something. Um, people that play games, I feel like a lot of them don't realize the difference there is between a AAA studio making a game and me,
Right.
Adrian, making a game. And the fact like you could ruin someone's whole week by leaving a mean comment on their page.
Hmm.
And like people don't realize that. Thankfully, I haven't gotten that much mean comments about Trash Planet yet. I feel like I'm going to eventually. Like, I feel like if I get to 1,000 downloads, it's like 450 right now. I
Right.
feel like if I get to 1,000, so there's gonna be a couple shitheads in there for sure
Hmm.
that are gonna be like, "What is this liberal trash game that I'm playing?" I feel like it's bound to happen eventually. But it was a lot worse with my game Hellbound. I actually back in the day, if you remember, you had to like get votes on stuff to get them on Steam.
Yep, that was Steam Greenlight. I had one game that had to go through that, and
Yeah,
yeah.
and now you just pay $100 and you put whatever you want on Steam,
Hmm.
which I think is better in some ways. I think it's worse in other ways. But
Hmm.
the Steam Greenlight experience for Hellbound was awful. It was terrible. People were grilling me and they were saying that my trailer sucked. And I don't know. I don't edit videos. I like grab some clips off of like ClipCap or whatever, some crappy program, and put it in Microsoft Movie Maker. Like,
Hmm.
I don't know how to do videos. I'm not an advertising person. And I feel like that's my one thing. My one gripe about making games is they need to realize like there's a difference between somebody that's a solo person and somebody that's making a AAA or a AA or whatever, a second or third party game. Like you need to have a little bit of compassion for the people that make games on their own and be like, temper your expectations a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, okay, the anatomical proportions of the characters in Trash Planet might not be accurate. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
I didn't go to design school.
Yeah.
So I would say that the one thing I don't like about making games is the sort of like actually gamers that they are out there, and there's a lot
Hmm.
of them.
Yeah, there was I made a game where you play as 99 characters at once, and I got a
I saw that.
review. Yeah. I got a review a couple months ago from somebody on itch.io. Now, the neat thing about reviews on itch.io is the star rating matters, but whatever text they leave behind is really just for you.
Yeah.
Um, and so this person talked about, they gave me like a 2-star review or something, and they talked about how like, oh yeah, I tried to do that sort of thing, which I outline here, and then I look it up, and it's basically like something to one of their shitty fanfics, and I'm like looking over all these notes, and I'm like, oh, you don't know how attack formulas work at all, do you? Like, and and it's 6 characters. Like, you think that's a big party? You think you can compare that to what I was trying to
I
do
mean,
here?
99
Okay,
six.
and then they had the gall afterward to be like, yeah, I think this would have worked better if you used like a third of the characters. And then I was like, but that's not 90. Like, you're missing the entire point of what this game was trying to and was
Yeah,
being. Like,
it's 99 characters.
yeah,
That's the
so
whole point.
yeah, it's the sort of thing where like, yeah, I'll get reviews from people like that, where at this point it's just I don't even care anymore. Like if it's something against like, oh, I don't like how you did this, and it's actually like a valid critique, then I'm like, okay, I'll have a look at it. But
Yeah.
most of the time, it really is just stuff that I'm like, I'm going to post this on Twitter so people get to laugh because this is just dumb. Because that's not what most people that follow me are like, which I appreciate. I've cultivated like the people that actually care about my games are decent enough people, and they, you know, it works. But
Yeah.
man, there are really some people out there with some opinions about things.
Yeah, and that was the thing. When I put up the first version of Trash Planet, like we were saying, that sometimes there are like valid critiques. The first version I put up, I used a font that I thought was good, but a lot of people had problems reading it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I did the update, I changed the font to be more legible, and I was like, okay, well, font's hard to read. I've been looking at it forever. It's
Right.
sort of like when you go to the zoo, like when you walk into the monkey house at the zoo, it smells at first,
Mm-hmm.
but then once you're in there for like a half hour, it doesn't smell anymore, and then you leave and you go back in and you're like, ooh, that was a stinky monkey house there.
Mm-hmm.
Or a lizard house or whatever. You know what I'm talking about at the zoo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, okay, maybe I've just been looking at this font for so long that now it's easy to read. I'll change the font. It's fine. But I've had some people be like, why aren't there any ins in Trash Planet?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's not the point.
Yeah.
The point of the game is that you have to find the trash and you have to scavenge. Like, it's not, and there isn't. And the funniest part about that particular criticism is that there's an easy mode that heals you up. When you go to like the save points, like there's cats that you talk to save in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I put an easy mode in there because I knew people would say that, and they said it anyway.
Yeah.
Like normal mode, it doesn't heal you when you talk to the cats, the save points, and it does in easy mode. And I'm like, just it tells you like if you want to save, it's easier in easy mode if you want to heal up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, dude, just play in easy mode. It's fine.
Yeah.
But
there's all kinds of people.
The nitpicking is
Yeah.
a big deal. Yeah.
So is there, games are getting to be sort of a bigger thing and higher production values and whatnot. Is there something in games that you feel we'll all have to incorporate at some point? Like how people talk about, oh, VR is the next big thing, like that's the only future for stuff, or, oh, it's only multiplayer games that are going to matter, single player games aren't going to anymore. Is there anything that you feel that way about, or?
Yeah, actually, I think two things are going to have to be in. And I actually disagree. I think that, well, I disagree with whoever was saying that single player games are not going to matter.
Right.
I think that single player games definitely can matter, for sure. And I think that I don't think everything has to be VR in the future, like 20 years from now, 2040.
Mm-hmm.
However, I do think two things are going to have to be there. I think replayability is going to have to be there, and you have to include like replayability or some sort of like collectathon that people can have, or like some sort of achievements that they can get.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple endings. I have multiple endings in Trash Planet because I didn't know how to do like achievements or anything like that. So I put multiple endings in there, depending on how many people you bond with.
Right.
And the second thing that I think this is really important, and it can definitely backfire, i.e., like Cyberpunk 2077 or Fall Guys, I would definitely backfired on this one. I think you have to appeal to like social media now, which sucks because I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
I hate social media, and I hate like that self-promoting like crap where you have to be like you're like making memes about your own content.
Yeah.
Oh God, it makes me want to barf.
Yeah.
But you have to, like, you really have to in order to like get people to care about your stuff. Like, I honestly think that this is something that big like movie companies, they know this.
Mm-hmm.
They like purposefully, and I mean tinfoil hat a little bit. I think they purposefully make movies and stuff a little bit more controversial.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they specifically poke people's buttons because they know like, oh, if we had this little like thing in Wonder Woman, a little bit of a whatever, we're gonna piss off the righties. And then when we piss off the righties, they're gonna complain about it. And then when they complain about it on Twitter, they're engaging with it.
Yeah.
And then the lefties are going to tell them to fuck off. And that means they're engaging with it. And we're going to keep churning that engagement wheel over and over and over again. And I feel like movies, they knew that. They've got that down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, just look at like The Last Jedi or whatever. You look at like those movies that come out that are like controversial when they come out,
Hmm.
which they're not. I mean, it's just some crappy like Hollywood movie. It's not controversial at all. But they have like this canned, almost like AstroTurf controversy that gets people talking on social media. And the way I'm tying this in is I feel like games are going to have to start doing that too if they want to like stay relevant,
Yeah.
especially the bigger that you are. And it's already backfired a little bit. Obviously, with Cyberpunk 2077, they had like this. I mean, the whole like you can adjust your cock size or whatever, like that
Yeah.
is so obviously trying to stir up controversy on the internet.
Hmm.
And like the fact that like I just again tinfoil hat, my own theory, my own opinion. It's my
Hmm.
opinion. I think the fact that like they have like a million different genders and stuff, but people like address you based on the tone of your voice still,
Yeah.
even though you can pick whatever gender you want, which is good. That's good.
Hmm.
But then like if you have like a slightly masculine voice, they call you a dude.
Right.
Like I think that they purposefully did that because they knew that people would be mad about it.
Hmm.
And if you're posting anything with the words cyberpunk or 2077 or both, you're engaging with it. Even if you don't think that you are, you're still
Hmm.
promoting their content a
Well,
little bit.
especially because one of the big things these days is quote retweets,
Yes. Yeah.
because people will totally just attach that tweet into whatever nonsense they want to say, and now that original one is getting a lot more views, and people are going directly to the thread and engaging with that,
Right.
and it really does just build up. Um,
Right.
so
And
I.
I'm not saying not to criticize media or anything. Like
Mhm.
people should definitely do that. And I think it is really stupid what they did with the I guess what you would call it the gendering, where they like misgender you basically based on the tone of your voice in the game.
Mhm.
I think that that is dumb. That they would include that in the game. However, I think people need to be a little bit more conscious and they need to like censor the name or something. Like if you're
Yeah.
gonna like talk about or complain about that specific thing. However, I do think that game companies are going to start doing that even more to like ramp up the engagement. Obviously, it backfired horribly with Cyberpunk 2077.
Mhm.
And when I mentioned Fall Guys, I think it backfired horribly because they tried to do like the cringy Reddit meme style where they're like, oh, this item is called Chungus Wungus.
Yeah.
And people just abandoned it as soon as they saw that.
Yeah.
But that being said, movies tried to do that at first too, and they weren't super successful with it. There was a lot of movies that I remember from like 2008, 2009, where they tried to drum up controversy. It just didn't go anywhere. Eventually, game companies are going to learn how to do it, and they're going to learn how to do it well.
Mhm.
And it's going to be a thing where you need to like create this discourse
Yes.
online, which I just want to barf thinking about it already. Like
Yeah.
I just know that whatever game comes out next year, there's going to be discourse about it, and there's going to be people on the left and the right and the middle and the top and the bottom and all over the place complaining about it and defending it. And uh the game marketers though, they love that shit. They
Yeah,
love it.
that's the big thing is
They love
like,
it.
okay, so I might be running this bundle, but I absolutely detest any amount of marketing I ever have to do. And
Yes.
and so like today when I was putting together the thread for the bundle, and I had to do it for like over an hour, and I'm just sitting there like complaining out loud the whole time while I'm
Yeah.
doing it. But
Well,
it's also
now
something that
imagine.
is necessary to do, and at
Right.
least like I can at least go to sleep knowing I'm doing this ethically, where I'm not
Yes.
like trying to say bad things about good people and whatnot,
Right.
where it's like, personally, my big takeaway from Cyberpunk is like, if you're gonna let me adjust the size of my penis, but you're not gonna let me like give me labia options, like what the fuck are we even doing? Like,
Yeah. I just
like if we're gonna go for nonsense, let's go for equality at least. But
yeah, I honestly just don't. You don't need like I don't know. At that level of character creation, it's
yeah,
like, okay,
it's
dude, I don't know. It's
absolutely
just weird.
unnecessary.
Unnecessary. And it was obviously trying to drum up discourse online about it. But
Yeah,
now
and people
imagine
talked
you had
about
to
it.
spend a whole hour of your time making that thread. And it's got like what? I think I checked, it's got like 1.5, maybe 1.7 like hearts or whatever
Yeah, yeah, no,
thousand. Um, Now imagine the game was like the bundle was controversial somehow,
right.
and you just had millions, not millions, but maybe hundreds of thousands of people talking about it and getting 30,000 hearts on all their statuses and stuff. That's why that strategy works, and people are going to do that, and they're going to find a way to do it right.
Yeah.
And I think that and the replayability moving forward, all big games are going to have it. I think.
Or at the very least, the big thing right now is constant content updates.
Yeah.
Like you see it with Apex Legends, where it's like, every month's a new season, and Fall Guys is trying to do the same thing, and Among Us is adding new maps and stuff right now, and it's constant flooding content. Even Death Stranding is having some Cyberpunk 2077 content in it now.
Really?
They just added like some new DLC for it, which
it's like doubly cursed.
Yes. So it's just there's so much. And so that's something that it's tough, and I'm hoping that things change, but I don't think that they're going to. We're going to have to it's just going to be a constant flood of stuff.
I don't think it's going to change. I think it's actually going to get worse.
Yeah.
Like a lot worse.
Okay, let's try and get less cursed here.
Yeah, I'm sorry if this is going to go super long, but I told you I'm a talker.
Oh, no, it's fine. I've been on a couple indie podcasts and stuff where they're like, oh, you can talk about your game. We think maybe an hour. And I'm like, okay, that's cute.
Yeah.
And it's gone on for like 2, and they're like, we're going to have to cut a lot of content. And I'm like, that's fine. I'll assume as much. But is there something you think indie games and studios can do better than AAA games and studios?
Yeah, so I think AAA studios, they obviously have all the advantage with marketing, graphics. For the most part, they can make those beautiful like 3D environments and stuff that it's just like, wow, I don't even know how you could ever do that. They're obviously going to have the benefits of all that stuff that costs money, but I think the things that indie games can do are the things that don't necessarily cost money, which is like having a unique aesthetic, having good writing. Having good writing doesn't necessarily cost money. It just requires the right person, the right talent.
Right.
Having an interesting soundtrack, I think, is something that indie games, they blow AAA games out of the water, like consistently, with the soundtracks. I mean, just look at like the soundtrack for Undertale. I mean, that one was, done by one person, and it was probably, I think Toby made that in like Fruity Loops, which is the program that I use for Trash Planet. It's not that expensive. And obviously, like, it was a very successful soundtrack, and it had a lot going on. And I mean, there was a lot of memes and stuff that came out of it as well. So I think that indie games, they need to focus on that specific aesthetic and that specific writing, because you can take a lot more risks because you're not putting that much money into it, if anything. Well, obviously, some indie games cost money to make. That's, not all indie games are made for free.
Right.
But
I mean, time is still its own cost in and of itself. But
it is, for sure. But you can take a lot more risks because you're not usually working with like a multi-hundred people studio where you're got the crunch and all that stuff. So you can take much bigger risks. And I think that is the thing that indie games should capitalize on. And I think they, for the most part, a lot of indie games do capitalize on that. To the credit of most indie game developers, I think they do cash in on that.
Cool. So for the last part of our particularly games-related questions, do you have any advice for people who want to get into making games? As much of a specific, like, your mileage may vary thing advice is. Do you have any?
Yeah. So my biggest advice, and it's going to sound super cliche, as all advice sounds cliche, right? Of course. Is that don't give up. Keep going. The worst, in my opinion, the worst thing that you can do is completely just abandon a project because you don't think that you're good enough to finish it. Like, you should try. Like, I know so many people that like tried to make a game and then they got in over their head and then they gave up on it. And it's like, well, scale back. You can scale back. There's no problem with that. Just like keep working at it and keep getting better, because eventually you're going to be able to make something that you're proud of. So for me, it was like, I used to make crappy games in Game Maker that hardly worked. And then I moved on to making crappy games in RPG Maker that people hated on Steam Greenlight. And then I went into making the game that I actually kind of like, which is Trash Planet. And I'm joking. I'm actually pretty proud of it. So like, and that took 10 years, literally 10, to get from point A to point B. And I wasn't working on games all the time. You know, I went to law school. I went to a 4-year college. So I was in school for 7 of the last 10 years. Law school takes 3 years, you know, college takes 4 years generally. But that would be my advice, is just don't give up. Keep going, keep working on stuff. Even if you're just making something really, really small, like keep up with making this thing. And eventually you're going to get good enough at it to make something that you actually like. So that's my advice.
Cool. Okay, so I have a sort of ending survey. Now this is to help people get to know you better. It's a modified version of Marcel Proust's questionnaire, which was then modified again and again, and was the sort of thing that they used on like Inside the Actors Studio.
Okay.
So this is partly that. What would you say your favorite virtue is?
I had to Google I had to Google a list of virtues.
Well, you can interpret that however you want. All I'm telling you are words. You can say whatever words you want back.
That's true. I said justice because I went to law school and I saw justice on the list, and I was like, justice. That's a good one. And justice is good. I like justice. I like fairness. Fairness and justice. Yeah.
What would you say is like one of the core aspect of your personality?
I would say that core aspect is that I'm pretty outgoing, and I definitely stick up for myself. Yeah.
Tough to find outgoing independent developers, but
I guess that's true.
Yeah. No, I've been to a couple of I've been to like GDC a few times, and it's amazing just how strong it is to be able to start a conversation. Because then people are like, oh yeah, I can talk about this. But so many people are just like, oh, I'm afraid to talk. So it's nice to have. Being outgoing in the games community is a very strong trait to have.
Yeah, I've actually found that out. Just even in my limited success, I've been like, yeah, I'm an extrovert with a capital E. I'm not trying to brag about it. I'm just being honest. And I'm like, huh. Yeah, this is like a lot easier just because I can just ask somebody to do a commission for me and like not be scared to do it.
Right. What would you say are your favorite qualities in other people?
I like people who are honest and down to earth. And obviously that share some of my same values of, justice and fairness and all that good stuff. Yeah. I would say honesty, down to earthness. That's important to me and other people.
Actually, I realize this is basically the same question, so I'm going to skip that.
Okay.
What do you appreciate the most in your friends?
I appreciate that they listen to my BS, which can be hard sometimes. And I appreciate that they indulge me when I'm like, I don't know if I have like bipolar or anything like that. And I'm not going to say that I do because I talked to a therapist about other things, but I've never asked about I never gotten a bipolar diagnosis, but I get manic about projects though.
Right.
Like, especially when I'm just starting, I'm like a million miles a minute talking about the thing that I'm working on. And I like that my friends put up with that.
Yeah.
And if, I'm like rambling about it for hours, literally, but yeah.
Yeah. I would say, also to anybody who's indie that is watching this, that is very important to have, is you need some amount of a support network. I'm not saying it necessarily has to be other developers. It just needs to be somebody that you can vent your nonsense to, and they will sit there and listen.
Yeah. Oh, you need it.
Yeah.
It's 100% necessary, I think.
Yeah. What would you say is probably your main flaw?
So this is a question I've gotten in a lot of job interviews,
Right.
a lot of job interviews that I did not get the position for. So that is something to note there.
Right.
But I question authority a lot. I've never been good with teachers. They all never liked me. And I went to grad school. So I must be incredibly masochistic because those law school professors hated me. The doctors hate him. One weird trick to get all your teachers to hate you. Just be me. I question authority a lot, and it's a problem. I've gotten like reprimanded. I've never gotten fired, but I've gotten reprimanded at work when I try to work like retail jobs or anything, because I'm like, why do I need to do this? Why do I need to do this specific thing? Like that, you ever seen that movie like Office Space? It's one of my faves. It's good. It's a 90s movie. It's made by the guy who made like King of the Hill and Beavis and Butthead and Idiocracy. Mike Judge. Yeah, it's a movie about like working a crappy menial office job, and they like steal a bunch of money from the company. But in the movie, there's a joke about like these TPS reports that they need to keep doing, and it's like this completely mindless task that they have to do. And I just know I've had stuff like that at jobs, and I'm like, why do I have to do this? And the bosses are like, just do it. I'm like, no, why do I have to do it? It doesn't make any sense. So I would say that questioning authority is probably the flaw that's got me in the most trouble, honestly, in my life. So it's probably my worst one.
What would you say is your favorite way to spend time?
I like to work on projects. I like to have a project to work on, and I like to be able to just blow like an entire like week on a project if possible. Obviously, employment dependent, obviously busyness dependent. But my favorite way to spend time is working on projects. So that's how I try and spend my free time whenever I can.
What's your idea of happiness?
So this is conceited, but whatever. My idea of happiness is getting recognized for stuff that I'm working on. If I could, like, honestly, I don't want to say I could die happy because, knock on wood, I don't want to die. We are in a pandemic and all, but I could live happy, let's say, if I had like recognition for a project that I worked on. Like if I had like a Game of the Year nomination, or I'm in a band too, or if I had like a Album of the Year nomination on like a decently reputable website, I'd be like, done. I'm happy now. And that is definitely not healthy. Your happiness should come from inside you. That's what my therapist says. It should come from in here, but it doesn't. So
it is nice to have that little bit of external validation. I do understand that.
I'm big on that. Yeah, for sure. And I think it's probably because none of my teachers ever told me I was doing a good job.
Yeah.
The entire time I was in school.
I'm not going to go into my personal issues with my parents on that one. But yeah, cool. What would you say then is your idea of misery?
Oh God, I wrote this one down. I'm just gonna say it: dying alone and unremembered. That's what I wrote down. I definitely want to be like remembered for something. Hopefully something good. I've considered like running for office. I probably will because I work in politics in St. Louis.
Right.
I probably will run for something at some point. I don't know what, probably nothing huge. But, I guess it would be bad to be remembered for something terrible. But I think it would almost be worse to be remembered for nothing and just not be remembered at all by anybody. I guess it's kind of depressing. That would be my idea of misery, though, other than the state that I live in, Missouri, which does suck. It is awful.
I lived in Illinois for a year, and that was over in Sandoval, which is a square mile, and that is certainly a place.
I've never heard of it.
No, for good reason. There ain't much there. There is a, oh my gosh. I don't remember the name of the store that's there. It's like AM/PM over here where I am in California. It's like corner store that you can get Casey's. That's what it is.
Casey's, yeah. Casey's. Yeah.
There's
like the wooden barn.
Yeah, there's a Casey's, there's a general store, and there's 3 churches. Like, people come there for the laundromat. Like, you don't go there to actually stay.
Yeah. For sure.
But it was beyond dirt cheap there, so I lived there for about a year while I got a game out. So that was nice, and it was also nice to just be isolated. Like, it doesn't get much more than that. But yeah, I understand Missouri. It's definitely also a place that exists in the United States.
It's a place, especially St. Louis, where I live.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that here in a minute. Actually. So,
Um, so if not yourself, who would you like to be?
I would like to be a cool senator or like a president who doesn't suck.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't know. You'd probably have to go pretty far back to get
Right, right.
to one of those. That doesn't
But
really.
not too far back, because then we end up back in slavery. And
That's true. If I could be like not hateful of Chinese people, Teddy Roosevelt, like
okay.
not racist Teddy Roosevelt, that'd be cool.
Hmm.
Uh,
From what
or
I
like
remember of him, he was a decent person.
he
But
was a little racist. However, as a political science guy, I do history. I'm like a
mhm,
presidential history buff,
gotcha.
elections buff. Everybody was back then, like for the most part. So it's kind of
Right.
like, especially everybody in government. However, if I could be like Dwight Eisenhower, he was cool. He was
Hmm.
legit. Dwight Eisenhower was legit. Yeah, I'll go with Dwight Eisenhower. He was legit.
Okay.
He got to fight in World War II against the bad guys, so that was cool.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Where would you like to live?
So this was what I was going to say. I would like to live in a version of St. Louis that doesn't suck. Is what I wrote down, because I actually like that. I take a little bit of pride in the fact that I'm not from, and no offense,
No, no, no.
California or Chicago or New York.
Hmm.
Like I think it's kind of cool that I'm from like a weird shitty place like St. Louis, but it sucks, and I wish it did not suck. We got every problem that you could possibly imagine. We're post-industrial.
Hmm.
We got a bad unemployment rate. We got pollution, trash planet, part of the reason.
Hmm.
We got crime problems. We got crappy, corrupt government problems at the state and local level.
Hmm.
It's just all bad in St. Louis. There's a lot of unrest in St. Louis. This is St. Louis is actually where the Ferguson
Hmm.
BLM
Yeah.
started in St. Louis, which that BLM, I obviously support that. That's really cool. But there's a reason why it started in St. Louis, and it's because St. Louis is awful.
Hmm.
So I would like to live in a version of St. Louis that doesn't suck. Um, so that's my answer.
All right.
Because I like St. Louis. It's got a lot of problems.
Right, right, right. What do you like about St. Louis exactly?
I like the culture of St. Louis. It's small, but like the punk rock scene that I'm in is
Hmm.
great. It's a lot of fun in St. Louis, especially when you can actually go to shows and all that.
Right.
There's a lot of history in St. Louis, which I think is really cool. Obviously, it's a complicated history to say the least, but there's a lot of history in St. Louis that's really, really cool. Uh, I'm not a huge like sports guy, but our sports stuff is good in St. Louis. Like, if you want a good like hockey team and a good baseball team to be interested in, then that we
Hmm.
have both of those things. I also like just like our downtown is nice. It's completely empty,
Hmm.
especially right now. I work downtown. It's completely empty, and it's like Escape from New York or like Mad Max, basically right now.
Right.
But there's a reason for that, and we all know what the reason is. 2020 things, but I do like a lot of things about it. I like the architecture of St. Louis. I like the fact that it's like a mid-sized city. It's not big. The cost of living is so cheap in St.
Hmm.
Louis. My rent is like $800 a month for my house.
That's pretty good.
For my house. It's 2 stories for my house
Oh,
that I own.
that's outstanding.
Yeah, I'm in my basement, and it's like so cheap. And like I see people's like grocery bills that they post on Twitter sometimes. And I'm like,
Hmm.
wow, that sucks.
Yeah, right,
My
right.
groceries cost like $80 at Schnucks,
Hmm.
which is what it's called here. You might have had Schnucks in Illinois.
No, we had like Dollar General. Like that's
Oh yeah.
what I had access to on a
Oh
regular
God.
basis.
You can't get good food at Dollar General.
No, I make it work. I know how to cook things enough to and throw enough spice on there to where
Do
it's
they have
not a
salad?
terrible thing. Not too much, not too often. That you had to
Mm.
get I had to get a ride from a friend to Aldi's if I wanted to get salad.
Aldi's, yeah.
Yeah.
I know
And
about Aldi's.
and that was still like a 25-minute drive from there.
Oh
Like,
boy.
yeah, there
You
was
couldn't even get an
nothing.
Aldi's in your town?
No. I try and relate it to my friends how isolated I was by telling them there's no Uber, there's no Lyft, there's no delivery pizza. Like,
Yeah.
there's
How many
none of
stop
that.
signs or stoplights did I have? One?
I don't know if it had lights. No, there was a
Yeah.
light by the school. There was a light by
Oh,
the
okay.
school.
They had to.
But the rest of it's just stop signs. Yeah, real
Yeah.
small place.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but yeah. Um, okay, so what would you say your favorite color is?
I like the color blue.
Mhm.
I'm a blue guy. Blue is my favorite color. Or black. Is black a color?
I will say black is a color.
Then it's that one.
Yeah,
It's blue or black.
yeah.
Blue or black is cool. Yeah.
Like 2/3 of the shirts I own are black, so I have to legally say black is an acceptable color.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's me too. Unless this is like my favorite colors in Magic question.
right.
And
Oh,
then it's
well, I
red and
mean,
green.
well, I'm a black-red player, so
Oh, I like black red too.
yeah,
Yeah.
that one's fun just because it's like we either kill things outright or we kill things with damage.
Yeah. I have a like in my like game room back there, I have like a bunch of like Magic posters. I am actually a competitive when the things are like firing because
Mhm.
of reasons. Um I'm actually like a competitive Magic player in St. Louis. Like you can look me up on
Wow.
like MTG top 8 or whatever. And I have decks on
Jeez.
there and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, some of my friends are competitive. I eventually gave them my Magic cards because it's like I just couldn't keep up, and a lot of mine
It's
were
a
from
lot.
like close to Arabian Nights era.
Oh
Like
God.
I
Yeah.
had old stuff. So
That's
we would
expensive.
play and I would have to keep looking at their cards because I couldn't keep up with the new things. And they would have to look at mine because they're like, what does this even do? Like War Chariot? What?
Did you have like Jusum Jin?
I no. I had
He was
like
expensive.
original Phage the Untouchable and
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
stuff like that. And then I
Player death touch.
yeah, that
Yeah.
was Super Death Touch. That was the fun
Yeah.
one. And
That was really sweet.
yeah, it was fun to have her and Achroma Angel of Fury in the deck because that was
Yeah.
red Achroma, which was fun to use.
Oh yeah. Is that one that have like protection from blue and white?
Protection blue, white, haste flying, and then it
Morph
had fire breathing.
and
So
morph. Yeah.
pay 1 red to get +1/+0 until end of turn.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
had
fire
morph,
breathing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So she
Yeah.
didn't have
I
like trample and something, and she didn't have trampler vigilance like original Achroma, which does kind of hurt. But it
yeah.
was still like fun to actually pull her out.
Yeah. Especially if you could like jank it out with the morph, like you could play it and
Hmm.
like do something with it to get it to flip without you having to actually pay for it.
Hmm.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I had such fun with those kinds of decks. And then everybody I knew was playing like all this other like super balanced, carefully crafted thing, whereas mine were like single copies of everything. And
Oh
so I was just
yeah,
like,
okay.
okay. So I would sometimes win just because I would pull nonsense that they weren't ready for.
Yeah.
But
Unfortunately, I'm more like the people that have like the four ofs of everything
oh
and
yeah,
like
yeah. I mean that's optimal play.
yeah.
But yeah. Um, yeah, Magic's an interesting game.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Mhm.
It's been absolutely terrible this year because their balancing team just like was asleep at the wheel this year. But
Gotcha.
that's a whole nother hour long video,
Oh yeah,
obviously.
yeah. I did make a there's a TCG jam that's going on itch.io. I think it still might be active, but I basically spent like a week trying to make a card game, and so I was doing research on Magic cards, and I looked at the Arabian Nights original set, and I was like, oh, they made a card. Their stuff was so jank at this time. They made a card that specifically counters cards in Arabian Nights
Yeah,
in the set.
City in a Bottle, right?
Yeah, City in the
Yeah.
Bottle. It's
Yep.
such a wild thing. I was like, this is bananas, but also, what game design? I would have never thought about this, and I might have to do this because this is
Yeah.
brilliant.
It's sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what would you say your favorite flower is?
So I had to Google it, and then I forgot what the name of it is.
That's
The
okay.
really smelly ones. The really smelly flower.
Jasmine?
No, no, I'm talking like the ones that
The
like
corpse one?
Vileplume is based off of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Amorphophallus, phallus,
Mhm.
titanium. Go with that.
Okay.
Or is a Venus flytrap a flower?
I will qualify it as a flower.
Then that one. I always thought it was cool. You could have like a flower that eats people.
Oh, yeah, yeah. There's
Like Little
carnivorous
Shop of
plants
Horrors.
are really neat. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that one's definitely based off of that.
yeah. That's my answer for that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Your favorite animal?
I'm a cat guy,
Mm-hmm.
100%. My cat is locked out,
Mm-hmm.
so he can't cause mayhem in
Understandable and
here.
appreciated.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm a cat guy. I've had 3 cats. Yeah, and Trash Plan is actually dedicated to one of my cats, who I had to put down this year,
Mm,
which sucked.
yeah, that's never easy.
No, it sucked. I did not have a good time that week, but it's fine.
Mhm.
Yeah, cats.
Okay. Do you have any favorite authors?
Yeah, so I don't read as much as I like wish that I did.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say my favorite authors are Kurt Vonnegut Jr.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same guy. I mean, it's the Kurt Vonnegut that you know. And Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide. That's definitely my 2 favorite
Mm-hmm.
authors. I like that sort of like wonky sci-fi that's like not too serious,
Mm-hmm.
like the soft sci-fi stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you have any favorite developers? Whether it's studios, individuals?
Yeah, so I name dropped Toby Fox. I
Mm-hmm.
like Toby Fox a lot. I think as far as like indie developers, like that's kind of like the Undertale is a game changer. Like
Mm-hmm.
I know it's been memed a million times and you can say whatever you want about the fan base, but that game is a game changer. And if you just play it as like you put your horse blinders on and you just play it as just like a game, it's amazing. It's a great game.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it was a huge game changer for indie games. And also, I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, but the guy who made Earthbound, Shigesato Itoi.
Yeah. Itoy.
Trying to pronounce that with my Missouri accent. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Mr. Itoi. I didn't. All respect. He's great, obviously, and the person who makes the Near Automata games.
Yoko Taro.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Yoko Taro. Those are some of my favorite developers. I like the developers that have sort of like a personality that they bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
That is obvious in the games that they make. I think that that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I've thought about submitting a talk to GDC where it's just like the contrast between Japanese and Western developers because Japanese developers have some personality to them.
They do.
And they're allowed to, is the big thing, you know? Like there's
Yeah.
Kamiya of Platinum Games who does like Bayonetta and such. And
Right.
he's so well known just because he doesn't take any nonsense and will instantly block people if they type any English on his Twitter because he only knows Japanese and he has told everybody many times and people still do that, so he just keeps blocking them.
That's great.
And
Iwata counts as a game
yes,
designer.
Iwata absolutely counts. And he's definitely like my top developer by far. Like that's
Yeah.
just he has such a history and has done so much.
55, dude.
Yeah,
55 is not. That's so young to
yeah,
die
it was
at.
way too soon.
Yeah. Bummer.
Mhm. So do you have any favorite heroes, heroines, etc. in whether it's fiction or otherwise?
Yeah, so I like I'm that guy. I like the villains more.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna
Oh no,
list
you
some.
can absolutely put like I'll modify the question later on this because that is
Yeah.
actually a very valid thing to say as well.
Yeah. Well, I will name a few. I like hero wise, I like Snake Plissken from Escape from New York.
Mm-hmm.
Love that movie. It was a big influence on Trash Planet, and it was actually filmed in St. Louis. So there you go. They did not have to do a lot of set design. They said it just looked like that. So that's fun. I like Snake Plissken. I like Ryuko Matoi from Kill la Kill. I like
Mm-hmm.
character a lot. In terms of villains, I like pretty much every villain from My Hero. They're all good.
Right.
I like the blood chick, Toga. She's
Oh
great.
yeah.
The edgy face guy with the hand who hurts you, kills you if you
I
touch
know
him.
who you're talking about. I can't. It's like Bleach where they've put so many characters into the anime that I
Yeah.
can't keep track of all their names.
I can't keep track of the names either, but I can describe them. The kill you if he touches you hand guy is awesome. I like Toga. yandere chick who like wants to eat your blood and then transform into you. I think
Mhm.
that's cool. I like the like edgy fire guy who's like burnt up and whatever. I think his name's Dabby or like
Dobby,
it's
yeah.
not probably not Dobby. Is it Dobby like the house elf? Is it
Well,
pronounced the same way?
it's how because I could go into like how Japanese pronunciation works, but
Right.
it would
I'm
be
bad at that.
yeah. It's just how the vowels work that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am not a great pronunciation. I always just preemptively apologize whenever I need to pronounce something that's not like American English.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I like that kind of stuff. I like the villains and things more, generally speaking. It's like the most edgy answer ever, but
Hmm.
it's just true. I like the villains. I like Flowey and Undertale. I like Monica from DDLC.
Hmm.
I like the villains that are like they're like they don't have like any sort of like reason why you should be empathetic towards them.
Right.
Generally, I like the villains because I feel like a lot of times in movies and stuff, and I probably in games, although I'm not thinking of it right off the top of my head, but I feel like a lot of times, like with the villains, they're like, oh, they have like there's bad stuff happen to them, and
There's a
they've got
reason for
reasons
what they're
for it.
doing. It was actually
Yeah,
because
I
like
don't like that.
yeah.
Because there's people in the world that are just bad. There are people that exist a lot of the times that they're just bad. They're just
Hmm.
bad people. They're born bad or they're raised bad or whatever. Like I could name a million different politicians, but I'll let whoever wants to fill in that blank fill in that blank. Some of them are just bad. They're just
Hmm.
bad people. And so if you think about the characters I listed, the villains like Toga, she's just a bad person.
Hmm.
She just wants to eat your blood and transform into you. That's her. That's what she wants to do. That she is not complicated.
Hmm.
Uh, this guy, he's just evil. He just wants to disintegrate the good guys,
Hmm.
and I like that. I honestly do like that.
Hmm.
I like when they're not like tortured and like I like
Right,
when they're
right.
forward.
Where it's just like they don't have any motivation beyond that moment, and you don't really need to give them one. Like they do that with some of their characters. Like they do that with Endeavor. How he
Yeah,
is not a good guy, but he is a good guy, and they're trying to like walk that line of what it means
yeah.
to be a hero and what family means and that sort of thing.
He's also doing eugenics though,
Yeah, yeah. Like
which is bad.
that's why I'm not saying he's a good
Right,
guy, but he
right.
is classified as a hero in the series. And so
Technically, yeah,
there's some characters that they do have that distinction with. But then there's other characters where they're like, this character is solely evil to be evil because they're evil, and that's the way
yeah,
that it is.
yeah.
Um,
And the villains in Trash Planet, the main villain that you fight at the very end, it's a little bit spoilers. He's got like motivations and stuff, but in terms of like, and obviously they should have motivations, but the main villain at the end of it, he's got some degree where you can actually kind of see where he's coming from.
mhm.
But the other three main villains in Trash Planet, they are bad just because they're bad. Like
Right.
there's the Queen of the Monsters, who's made out of acid. She's just bad because she's bad. Like she's bad because she's an acid
Hmm.
monster. Um, the slave guy who's like got the giant prison, he's just a bad guy. Like he doesn't need to be complicated.
Hmm.
He's just a bad dude. And then the leader of the Hornet Gang is sort of neutral, self-interested because that's just the way she is.
Right, right.
So I think that that's kind of the characters I like. I like when they're like realistic, and
Hmm.
because it is more realistic for me to be like, this person is just bad because they're bad.
Hmm.
Like they're you're not being like, oh, the president who I think is bad. He's got some reason for it.
Right, right.
He's the tortured soul. It's like, and you could say whatever, you could fill in whatever president you want for that. If you want to say that applies to Biden, or you want to say that applies to Trump or Obama or whatever, that's fine. But I have one in mind
Hmm.
for myself.
Okay, cool. Did you say you have any favorite painters or composers?
Yeah. So I saw this question on the list or whatever, and I was actually like, I have an answer for this because there's a art museum in Trash Planet at the end.
Hmm.
The main villain is like obsessed with beauty and stuff, and he hates Trash Planet because of Trash
Hmm.
Planet things. And I actually had some like public domain art that I like made super tiny, and it's super pixelated, so it kind of gets around some of the things.
Hmm.
But I actually have a piece by Pablo Picasso in there. So Pablo Picasso, Guernica,
Hmm.
that is great. I love that painting a lot. I wish I could. That's one of my things. I want to go see it in Spain. I want to
Hmm.
go to that art museum and see it because apparently, do you know the one Guernica? It's like black and white. If you Google it, you probably know
Yeah, yeah.
what it is.
I know I've seen it. It's just I'm trying to get it right in my head right now
Yeah,
while
it's
I'm
like
playing.
black and white, and it looks like a bomb went off, and there's like people freaking out, and there's like a horse that's in the middle, and
Yes, yes.
yeah, I love that one. It's great.
Hmm.
I love the symbolism of it and everything. So I would say Pablo Picasso for sure.
Hmm.
I like, and I'm gonna get the name wrong. Hieronymus Bosch,
Yeah.
the Bosch paintings that are like the big, chaotic, crazy. There's like demons having sex, and there's like shit coming out of the sky and all that. I love the Hieronymus Bosch paintings and Roy Lichtenstein, who did the comic ones.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Cool.
all three of those.
Hmm. Our last question. Do you have any special or peculiar talents?
Yeah, so it's not that weird, but I, play guitar. I'm in a band and all that stuff. So I
Mm.
just want to name drop the
Yeah,
band,
that absolutely counts.
Fight Back Mountain, Spotify. Anybody that's watching
Hmm.
that made it this far, obviously you like me a little bit, hopefully, or you just hate me so much that you want to hear what I have to say. But other than that, I've actually worked at a radio station, which I think is weird for people. And obviously, I got the law thing, which is probably unique for indies,
Hmm.
game developers. But I have actually worked on a radio station as a radio DJ before. Um, I was a radio DJ for 88.1 KDHX in St. Louis
Wow.
last year for a little bit, but they had some stuff happen. There was like some stuff I can't really talk about it.
Right, right.
They had some
NDAs are typical.
controversy. Yeah, they had some controversy that was covered in our local newspaper. So I ended up quitting, but I did have a radio show on KDHX at like 2 a.m. for like the better part of like 9 or 10 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's it for us. Do you have anything else that you want to add?
No, buy the bundle.
Yeah, great.
Do it.
Um, Anything that you want to drop? Like, I'll ask you for email or message about like what links that you want to put down for like your band or games or stuff like that. But is there anything that you want to just name drop right here while you have the time?
Yeah, so Trash Planet, check it out. Bundle, check it out. My Twitter is at Trash Planet Game. It's my personal Twitter, but I just kind of hijacked the Trash Planet one for myself. And yeah, I think that's about it. Oh, the band, Fight Back Mountain. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right.
Check
Great.
all that stuff out.
All right. Well, thanks so much for your time. And that's it for us. So thank you all for watching, and hope you all catch the next episode. Goodbye.